Last week, over in the great state of Arizona, an election watchdog group called True the Vote presented their findings regarding ballot trafficking to the Arizona state legislature. Now, this organization, True the Vote, might sound familiar to you if you happen to watch the film 2000 Mules. They were the researchers that were featured in that particular movie. And so, for the last several months, they have been going around to the individual state legislatures presenting their findings so that the relevant agencies in those states can launch their own investigations. Because after all, it's the individual states that have the subpoena power that's necessary to look into the actual allegations. And so, along that line, over at the Arizona State Legislature, you had Ms. Catherine Engelbrecht, who is the founder of True the Vote, as well as Mr. Greg Phillips, both the lead researcher as well as the lead data analyst. And while presenting their findings, Catherine and Greg laid out how the millions of gigabytes of cell phone tracking pings that their team combed through showed that alleged ballot traffickers visited the drop boxes in two of Arizona's largest counties no less than 5,700 times, all during the 2020 election cycle. Here's specifically what Catherine told these lawmakers in terms of their methodology as well as their findings. Quote, "When we started the project, we didn't know what we would find. We began to think through what is a realistic expectation or threshold for when going to a drop box is too many times. We wanted to focus on a clear, narrow data set to demonstrate extreme outlier behavior. We settled on 10 visits as the threshold, but here in Arizona, they went, meaning the ballot mules, went an average of 21 times. Meaning that according to their research, the average ballot mule over in Arizona made 21 visits to ballot drop boxes during the 2020 election cycle. Specifically, their study used October 7th to November 3rd of 2020 as the time frame, which covered the entirety of the 2020 election cycle. And by running their cell phone tracking analysis during this exact period of time, these researchers, they were able to identify 202 target devices that made a total of 4,242 unique Dropbox visits over in Maricopa County. And then another 41 target devices that made 1,435 unique Dropbox visits in Yuma County. And for your reference, Yuma County and Maricopa counties, they are the most populous counties in all of Arizona. And together they make up approximately 65% of Arizona's total population. Then, in terms of how specifically these researchers were able to get the number of target devices, as well as the number of trips to drop boxes that each of these devices made, they used a technique called geofencing. Here's specifically how Catherine described it during the hearing in front of the state legislature. Quote, "We resolved to try to find a path that we could measure that would be useful to law enforcement. A geofence is around every drop box to provide a digital coordinate set and measure how many times a device passed through the geofence. Measurements are precise to within a meter of contact with a ballot box. The federal government uses the same tracking technology. Its accuracy is nearly perfect, like wearing an ankle bracelet." And of course, you have likely had experience with this type of cell phone geo-tracking for yourself. For example, it's exactly these cell phone pings which allow the Uber app on your phone to know that when you get off the plane and you're waiting for your cab, you're standing at Terminal B, Section 5, door number 7, because the cell phone data is pretty accurate. And this election watchdog group, they're hoping that the Arizona legislature will use the cell phone data that they have already collected and already analyzed to investigate not only what took place in the year 2020, but also prevent this type of trafficking from happening again. Here's specifically what Catherine had to say on this front. Quote, "We decided to go in on a methodology that uses ad data embedded in all of your phones. This is how digital DNA is captured. If there were a subversion of electoral process, it would show up in the drop boxes. We believe that to prove it, geospatial data would be something to focus on. We resolved to look at the ways to prove this. Friends, it's happening on all of our phones, which are attached to us at almost all times. Suffice for this purpose and for this time to say, the outlier set was so extreme that it warrants serious consideration, one that we hope this body before us will consider." Catherine then went on to say that the combination of inaccurate voter rolls, the mass mailing of ballots, as well as unguarded ballot drop boxes, well, that creates a perfect situation where ballot trafficking can occur. Furthermore, in terms of the actual people behind this trafficking, Catherine mentioned that it affects vulnerable communities the most. Here's specifically what she said on this front. Quote, "The exploitation targets the most vulnerable communities. This is voter abuse. This is not about Republicans or Democrats. This is about securing the vote." And frankly, this has been my experience when I was looking into this issue as well. For instance, when I was over in Maricopa County prior to the 2020 election, I came across a homeless man right there on the street who appeared to have been exploited for his votes. That's at least what he told me on camera. Going to vote by mail or in person?
In person.
Do you have any concerns about the mail?
Yeah, because somebody might get a hold of it and maybe to change it up. Even the ballots they do out here to sign up, those might be fraud too. You know? 'Cause I think I signed about 2 of them. Not for Biden. for other people. I don't know who they were. But one was for, I think Republican. But they told me just go ahead and sign it. That's all I know right there. I just gotta watch out for the ballots. Yeah. In person's pretty good.
And then, in summing up her team's findings, Catherine made the following recommendations for the state legislature to adopt moving forward. For one, to commit to cleaning voter rolls using real-time technology. Secondly, to eliminate the use of drop boxes. Thirdly, to stop the mass mailing of ballots, or, if those aren't possible, to, at the very least, secure the drop boxes that currently exist with video surveillance. Now, in terms of the reaction from the lawmakers in attendance, it appeared that they were, in fact, moved to action. For instance, State Representative Kwang Win, he's a Republican, he said this, quote, "The only thing I would like to see come out of this meeting is people going to jail. I would just like to see people cuffed." Likewise, state lawmaker Leo Biasiucci, he's also a Republican, he added this, quote, "Obviously, something is going on. We've got to figure out what went wrong, how to fix it, and if you were involved, you should be prosecuted." And then, in terms of the concrete actions that might be taken moving forward, State Senator Walter Blackman, he's also a Republican, he summed up the solution for Arizona in House Bill 2289. Here's what he said, quote, "After seeing this, we need to move forward with HB 2289. And it's worth mentioning that when Senator Blackman mentioned House Bill 2289, well, he was met with applause. Now, House Bill 2289 would effectively eliminate early voting in the state of Arizona. If this law were to actually pass, it would quite frankly be a big change for the state of Arizona, given the fact that in the previous election, 88% of voters voted early, either by using the mail or through a drop box. And even though this bill did make it out of committee in the Arizona House, it was killed about 2 months ago in the Arizona State Senate when 2 Republican senators actually sided with the Democrats to not pass the bill. However, with this new presentation from True the Vote, well, maybe the political winds will shift and a resurgence in same-day voting might emerge. Only time will tell. Regardless, if you'd like to watch the full 90-minute long presentation that True the Vote gave to the Arizona State Legislature, I'll throw a link to it. It'll be right there in the description box below this video for you to check out. And all I ask in return is that if you haven't already, take a quick moment to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. And also consider subscribing to this YouTube channel as well. That we can get honest content like this delivered to your YouTube feed every single weekday. And now, let's give a quick word from our sponsor. All right, the sponsor of today's episode is a phenomenal company called AMAC. That's AMAC, and it stands for the Association of Mature American Citizens. They are quite literally one of the fastest growing conservative organizations in all of America, and you should consider joining for 3 main reasons. The first is the money-saving benefit, because as a member of AMAC, you get access to a ton of discounts at many different verticals. Things like vitamin stores, restaurants, retail shops, and so on and so forth. If you want to check out the full list, it's pretty exhaustive, you can do so over on AMAC's website. The second benefit is that you get exclusive access to the AMAC magazine. It'll be delivered directly to your doorstep, and it contains phenomenal coverage as well as deep analysis. And then the third benefit, the one that people say is their favorite, is that AMAC fights for your values over on Capitol Hill. In fact, you can check out the online version of this on their website. It's the AMAC Action Advocacy Annual Report, and it shows exactly what they're doing on Capitol Hill in terms of fighting what they call the socialist storm that's brewing in this country. So head on over to amac.us/factsmatter and sign up today. I'll also throw a link down in the description box below. And now, as I mentioned in an earlier video last week, we recently published a great interview over on Epoch TV between myself and Dr. Michael Yeadon, who's a former vice president over at Pfizer, as well as Pfizer's former chief scientific officer for their allergy and respiratory research department. Now, that episode has been blowing up over on Epoch TV because, well, it makes sense. We discussed a broad range of topics, including how, in his professional opinion, there is no safe way to combat an ongoing pandemic with a vaccine, since the necessary safety trials will take longer than the length of the actual pandemic. And also how if we continue down the path that we've been going down for the past 2.5 years, it will actually lead to total global control by a small group of elites. Now again, that interview was fantastic and it blew up over on Epoch TV. A lot of people watched it. However, due to the censorship regime here on YouTube, well, frankly, I don't even feel comfortable showing you the trailer for that episode. And so if you'd like to check it out for yourself, I'll throw a link. It'll be right there at the very top of the description box. I hope you check it out. And then, until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.